another one that is in quadratic form. We're going to pick out our A. A is equal to -3. B is equal to -2. To find my x value for my vertex, I do -b over 2a. That's going to be -2 over 2 times -3. That gives me 2 over -6, which is a -1/3. Now, I need to plug that in to the original equation to get my y value. So it's going to be -3 times -1/3 squared minus 2 times a, let me erase my parentheses, 2 times a -1/3 and then a plus 1. Okay, so that's going to give me -3 times 1/9. And that's going to give me a plus 2/3 when I multiply that. -2 times a -1/3 is positive 2/3 plus 1. Okay, so that is going to give me, when I multiply -3 times 1/9 is a -1/3 plus 2/3 plus 3/3. And that gives me 4/3. So, for my vertex, my x value is a -1/3, my y value is a positive 4/3. Let's go over here and plot those points. -1/3, positive 1 1/3 will be somewhere right about there. Now when you do your XY chart on this one, you don't want to use symmetry for this one. It's a little bit more difficult. We know we have an axis of symmetry here, but it's a little bit more difficult with the fractions, so it's probably easier to just try 5 points. So let's just plug in some points. To the left of -1/3, we can do -1, -2. To the right of -1/3, we can do a 0, and we can do a 1. So we're going to plug all these points in up top to get our number. So let's start with 1. If I do -3 times 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 1, I get -3 minus 2 plus 1, which is a -4. So this one will be -4. If I plug in a 0, I get -3 times 0 squared minus 2 times 0 plus 1, which is 1. Then if I plug in a -1, I get -3 times -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 1. That's going to give me -3 times positive 1 plus 2 plus 1. That's -3 plus 3, which ends up being 0 for that one. We got one more to plug in, and that is my -2. So -3 times -2 squared minus 2 times -2 plus 1. So that's going to be -3 times positive 4. Then -2 times -2 is plus 4 plus 1. That's going to give me a -12 plus 5, which is -7. Now let's plug all these points in our graph. Get them to erase. And let's see what it looks like. We did not use symmetry this time because of the 1/3. Had it been a 1/2, that would have been easier. But with a 1/3, it's usually easier just to plug the numbers in. It's not wanting to erase. Okay. Now we put our numbers on the graph. X is -2, y is -7 would be down here. X is -1, y is 0 would be here. X is 0, y is 1 would be here. And X is 1, y is -4 would be right about here. So your parabola look like that. By the way, you kind of had a hint to that because if you look in the front, there's a -3 in front of the x squared. Remember the rules from the previous chapter. That means it's going down and it's going to be kind of skinny.